How many of you have ever heard of breed-specific legislation? Show of hands. Okay, wow. Okay, well, breed-specific legislation is legislation that is geared towards a certain breed of dog, or in this case, the way that it's being used nowadays, a certain physical appearance or certain characteristics that a dog has. We should do away with breed-specific legislation because of its numerous harmful effects and instead replace it with neutral laws that are more beneficial to the community. Now, the point of breed-specific legislation was to try and decrease dog bite occurrences. By the way, this is mostly what breed-specific legislation is geared towards, is pit bull type dogs, American Staffords, stuff like that. And so my mom last year in July, at the end of July, was bitten by a dog on her morning run, which was really uncommon in our neighborhood. Most people keep their dogs on leashes, but this dog had gotten out, and it was basically an irresponsible owner who was using their dog as a guard dog. It never really had any socialization outside of its yard, and so when it got out and they whistled for it to come back, it turned towards my mom, saw her, and zeroed in, and then bit her. Thankfully, it was just a bite and release instead of a hold on. She could have been missing much more of her leg. So I understand why some people are for this legislation, but it doesn't really work. Breed-specific legislation has a lot of negative impacts on dogs and their families. An article published by OneGreenPlanet.org in August of 2014 called 10 Facts About Breed-Specific Legislation and How You Can Help Stop It lists one of the facts as breed-specific legislation tears families apart. When a dog that fits the characteristics for the law that lives in that city, they have the right to take the dog away, and then they put it in a shelter and they go through a bunch of legal proceedings, and that could end up with one of two things. Either you get your dog back or they euthanize your dog. And then in an article on ASPCA's website, they states that dogs suffer, owners suffer, and public safety suffers. It hasn't been proven that by passing breed-specific legislation that dog bites actually go down. It's not really the case. They kind of stay the same. And it's hard to pinpoint just one breed as the cause for all dog bites. It presents undue strains on families. In an article published in GP Solo, a legal journal, in July of 2009, author Dana Campbell tells a story of a family in Kansas who had their dog Nico seized because he fit the physical attributes, but then after an 8-month process, it was determined by DNA testing that he was not in fact a pit bull or American Stafford. He was actually a boxer mix. But this could have almost ended up with this family losing their dog to euthanization because of these laws. It's discriminatory against breeds and owners. On the American Veterinary Medical Association website, they posted an article titled "Why Breed-Specific Legislation is Not the Answer." They say that breed-specific legislation focuses on dogs with a certain appearance or physical attributes instead of an actual breed. This is harmful because dogs that don't fit the actual breed and DNA criteria end up being removed simply because they look a certain way. The American Kennel Club states in a 2015 article that on their website that breed-specific legislation is like racial profiling for dogs, and it unfairly punishes responsible owners. Breed-specific legislation only takes dogs away from everybody, but it doesn't do its initial purpose of punishing irresponsible owners that have dogs that end up being aggressive and violent towards human beings and other dogs. It punishes responsible owners who have taken the time to license their dog, train their dog, care for their dog in a responsible way that anybody else like us would. The American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior's position on breed-specific legislation corroborates this idea that visual identification isn't reliable. Also, breed-specific legislation is a waste of public resources. When they take dogs that fit the criteria and put them in a shelter, they're wasting valuable space that dogs who are strays and that need actual homes, they're taking that away from them. They're taking dogs that are in perfectly fine, responsible homes and putting them in a cage that could be better used for a stray that's found on the street or a dog that's been actually abused. In August of 2013, it was reported in a Times Magazine article by Jacob Davison that former President Obama spoke out, saying, "We don't support breed-specific legislation. Research shows that bans on certain types of dogs are largely ineffective and often waste public resources." Thankfully, it's on a downward trend. In 2014, the National Canine Research Center reported that the national trend is moving away from breed-specific legislation to neutral breed laws, which brings me to my solutions. For starters, if you're going to adopt a dog, any kind of dog, doesn't have to be a pit bull, it could be a Chihuahua or a Saint Bernard, be a responsible dog owner. Train your dog, take care of your dog, love your dog like you would and a member of your family. Now these are some other solutions that to change dangerous dog laws to ones that are breed neutral, that don't have specifications about what the dog looks like, and instead focus it on the behavior of the individual guardian and dog. We can also enforce dog license laws and other laws such as leash laws. That way you can help prevent dog bites. Also, sterilization of animals. Mostly when you adopt from a shelter, they end up being sterilized, but it's been shown that the most dog bites come from unneutered males because of the extra testosterone. It makes them more aggressive, so you can help solve their aggression by sterilizing them. Also, if you don't want to do any of the above, or you want to add to it, you can call government representatives and tell them that you don't support breed-specific legislation. There are a number of counties in California, in the Bay Area, and some down south and some around here that still have these laws on books. And then you can also sign petitions to help people in other countries like Montreal. They have breed-specific legislation and it's been extremely harmful. So now, after being presented with all of the information, I urge you to please help completely end breed-specific legislation.